Hi, and welcome. Today is August the 23rd, 2022. I'm posting a video to introduce myself and introduce my channel. I haven't got a name yet. I think I'm going to call it Making Disciples. What I know. Disciple making. Obeying Jesus. Prophets were to be stoned if what they said didn't come true. That's how the Old Testament dealt with false prophets. And so as I embark on this journey, the beauty of this is as I record this and I have it written down and I post it, I'm really, really excited to see a year from now what, if anything, has happened. I've watched YouTube quite a bit since, well, for the last 6 months. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. And Ukraine was attacked. At a very crucial time in my life, a very critical time. I don't know if you can tell how nervous I am. I've pictured this happening quite a few times, yet I never pictured myself being the person to speak for some reason. As I watch YouTube content, it's a channel and you're watching stuff, you know what's going on, but it's somebody speaking to nothing. He's speaking to a box. And then it comes to me, and I'm one of 635,000 people that have watched that video and excited about it and sharing it, and what's going on in my life is so exciting. It's blowing my mind. But really, I'm sitting in a room talking to a little box. So I don't dare watch it when I'm finished, because if I do, I won't send it, I'm sure. So today's day 1, August 23rd, of the channel, Making Disciples. I'd like to tell you just a little bit of my testimony. I'd like to go back 9 months to a year and really focusing on the last 6 months and the previous 6 months to that. Just to say that got me to 6 months ago when God really started to get a hold of me. I'm in my 50s. I'm a father of 3 children. I had 4. My 4th committed suicide when he was 20, when he was young, in his 20s. And that was the last failure on a string of failures. So I'll go back a little bit further. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. When I heard that Toronto had a blessing, I found a way to go to Toronto. I have a non-denominational background. We'd say Pentecostal. Went to non-denominational church, non-denominational church. Was believed strongly in a city church. My parents got married when I was 6, 1972, when the Jesus movement was on. And so I grew up going to church 7 days a week sometimes. We had a church that had no pastor. It had 4 elders. And the lead elder was the quasi-pastor. We had a head elder. My dad was one of the elders, one of the 4. So I saw church leadership maybe from a slightly different angle, sort of just being in it, not in decision making and not in the elders meetings, but my dad would talk. He'd never told stories out of school, but I started to become familiar with the process and things you need to consider when you're a leader, and you have a role to play to make sure deception doesn't come in, that heresies don't come in, lies don't come in. And so I was one of those kind of Christians that always felt that I was in a bubble of glass and I could see, hear, but I couldn't really touch. I would talk about the Holy Spirit, but wouldn't really feel him in my heart. Didn't feel real, but I said the words. I had a little bit of angst if I should go to Toronto, and I remember a really beautiful, wise man that God had placed in leadership in our church, oversaw a number of churches, and he oversaw our church as well. His name was Dwayne Harder. He was a man of God, and he said, well, why would God care? Do you think God doesn't know your heart? He doesn't get excited that you're excited, that you know he's there, you want to meet him? And that freed me, and I talked to my dad, who is probably the best dad, use him so I could see the Father. In my appreciation of the Father now, today, for sure, is just so much deeper because of my father, because he modeled something to me. He got excited when, I remember the day he said, Greg, come listen to this. And Enoch walked with God, and he was no more. He said, Greg, he never died. He went to heaven. He walked to heaven. He had so much fun with God. God had so much fun. God delighted in him. God delighted in Enoch so much that at the end of a long walk, he said, hey, you're closer to my house. Let's go to my house. And Enoch did. Religion, accept Jesus Christ in your heart. You believe. I believe, man. I believed. I believed. I didn't do, though. I didn't get it. I wasn't faithful. At what point, inner healing, those you know what inner healing, going back to your childhood. God, I repent of everything. I laid on everything. I give you that hurt. I choose to forgive that. I just don't choose. But it was always, to me, it felt, it was my choice. I never could, I couldn't see the difference between being disciplined and having God do things in you that change you. God changes your heart. To me, it just seemed like if I As long as I was disciplined, God would move him. God would be working in my life, and I would be having victory. If I didn't eat, I would fast. The moment I decided to eat, I broke my fast. I never felt that supernatural. It's all God, God. It never seemed God. Like, so someone that was well disciplined, someone that followed the steps. I mean, I understood theologically that wasn't the same, but I couldn't see how there was any difference. Because in my reality, if I chose to do it and do it, I did it. If I chose to fail and not do it and stop, I failed and didn't do it. I can blame God, not blame God. It didn't matter. Like, none of that mattered. It didn't get done if I didn't do it. And then, then it's me, not God. And then it's self. And so a lot of disillusionment. Ultimately, though, I was doing my own thing, obviously. And I didn't get it. And I didn't get it. And everybody said, "Oh, Greg, you have to, it has to become real. Right now, it up here, but you have to be in here." Okay, well, I want it in here. How much more can I say? I want it in here. Yes, I want it in here. I accept. I'm sorry. I surrender. Take it. It's yours. My marriage failed. That put PSD in me for quite a while. Like that. That broke something. That was. I didn't have a defense for that. Being a sinful person, not willing to die for my spouse, where it really counted. Where it really counted. It's an awful place for her to be in. Trying to submit to somebody who isn't submitted to God. How can you submit to somebody who's not submitted? It just doesn't work. And taking that for granted. And I failed. I just outright failed. And I could make excuses. I could always make excuses. But the reality is I just failed. I was a man of the house. And I had a role. I mean, a job to do. I functioned in a role, and I didn't fulfill that role. I believed at the time I was as for women's rights, and I mean, there's so much I didn't. Looking back at it, there's so much I needed to correct. But the bottom line, when you're not submitted to God, yeah. And so that sent me for a loop. And then my son committed suicide, and that broke me. That was like a double punch. Boom, 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 boom. And that just crushed me. Because I loved my son. And all I can remember is my failures and my failures and my failures. The rejection, I gave him rejection. I knew, my whole life, I knew what to do. And I started to get reports from my older daughters that there was a disconnect to how I thought our household ran and our family ran to the reality of what they perceived. Because I worked out of town to raise money, I was in an awful situation where I needed, for a while there, I needed so much money a month, so many thousands of dollars. And then I had to go out of town. I chose to go out of town and work out of town to try to raise the big bucks to pay the debts, to dig myself out, dig our family out. And ultimately, I did things on my own that just, my ex just wasn't her cup of tea. And when she left me, I was just left. When you think the reality is you didn't do it right because you're in this situation. But when you look honestly back, there's nothing you would change, because if you're honest with yourself, that's what you believed at the time. Being part of a family, having brothers and sisters come and speak into your life, that is so important. If you don't let them speak in your life, you're messed up. And you make wrong decisions, but you think you make right ones, and the two of you are in unity, and you pray about it, and you say this is the direction of God, and it's failure, and you go there and it's failure. But each time you think you're doing the right thing. You think you're doing the right thing. You honestly think you're doing the right thing. You pray about it. You lay it before God. You fast. You do what you know to do, and it turns out to be completely wrong. And when you start looking back, the only conclusion you can come up with is that you didn't do it right. And then why be a Christian? Like, why? If it's all on me to do it right, if obviously I didn't repent enough, I wasn't sorry enough, I didn't do it right enough, the responsibility of the failure is on me. Where's God? It just became a conundrum for me of how you say, the Bible says, make with all your requests, make them known unto God. So you do. And he doesn't answer. Or he doesn't answer them the way you expect him to be here. It's you or him. And he doesn't make mistakes. He's always right. It's just, there's a disconnect. It's just too, you can't hold him accountable. The Bible says, if you're a prophet and you fail, if your prophecy comes back void, kill him. Kill the prophet. So God, if you're prophesying and it doesn't come back, it should kill you, right? Which you say to do. But you're never wrong, because if you don't do it, it's because it wasn't your will. And if you did, then, for instance, you pray for somebody because they're sick. They get better, God heal them. They die, it wasn't God's will. It wasn't his will that he lived. Okay, so it doesn't, there's no accountability. God's always right. No matter what the outcome is, if you lay it all before God and, I felt, at the very least, I deserved, for the hours I spent trying to be faithful to God, the confessions on my lips, the Christianese in me is hard to say this, but I'll say it. I felt he owed me at least a heads up. My son left, and I called my ex, or she called. And I'd already, because of, I'd already destroyed that relationship bad, so that she had to use my daughter's phone to call me because I wouldn't answer her. But so I said, yes, my daughter, and it was her. I said, oh, what happened? Did you? I said, yes, I dealt with it. He left. She goes, you can't let him leave. He's going to commit suicide. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't be crazy. But she was right. And I just felt, God, you were able to tell her that the moment I spoke to her. Why couldn't you have told me that 20 minutes earlier somehow, 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes earlier? Once he was gone, I couldn't find him. But maybe I should have looked harder, right? I tell you, there's just a lot of pain with that one. He put his fingers on my chest as I walked up to him because I kicked him out of my house. I told him to leave for that night. It just was best if he left. What father rejects his son that way? But I tell you, I was an alcoholic. No, I didn't tell you that. But I was quite the alcoholic by that time. I was a Christian man. And I was a little cut. I wasn't that drunk, but I was a little cut. In the Okanagan, it was 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. I was busy online booking hotels because in the morning, me and him were leaving and going on a trip together because I loved him. He loved me. And then things happened, and he just, okay, great. Yeah, but Thomas, yeah, you need to go. I still hold my breath and I start to just get, who would say that? Like, I don't have to be a good father to know that. That's human being 101. Yeah, I did. Say, hey, come here, we'll talk about this, And he said, put his fingers like this, and went, Dad, it's okay. Yeah, pushed me back as I went to hug him. That's not fair that I have to talk about this stuff. It's not what this video's about at all. It's not. Anyways, so that was it. That began a journey. That journey ended up with me being a heroin addict. Unable to work. A heroin addict. And things were happening in my life. And a person who needed a place to stay, and so she stayed with me in my apartment there. She kept saying, relationships can't work if you're a heroin addict. I knew that. But such a love for her. God had put such a love in my heart for her. My being a heroin addict was just out of control. I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop it. It's unlike any addiction, like drinking. I just quit drinking the moment I became a drug addict, and drinking they don't mix. And I could sit there with a needle in my arm. Just not a problem. Not a problem. A wise friend of mine said once, Greg, there's no such thing as bottom. So let's say you're outside at night and it's cold and it's windy and you're huddled behind a garbage can in the back alley with a blanket around you, tucked it all around. And then you look across the back alley and there's another streetless person huddled beside a garbage can. And in our mind, we're like, oh, I'm glad I'm not him. He must be at rock bottom. He doesn't even have a blanket. I have a blanket. It doesn't matter how far down you go, you can go farther. There is no bottom. When I hit bottom, well, we have bottoms, but boy, you can go pretty low before you think you can't go any farther. And you can get used to that new reality pretty quick. So this wonderful lady got pregnant. And I knew, I believed in my heart of hearts that I was here for such a time as this, for her and her son Bravery. That's his name. What a beautiful name she chose. What a just gorgeous name. Through a whole bunch of circumstances, we ended up moving to a place. If you're ready to see how God works, let me explain to you this. In the city I live in, we had a house, me and my ex. It was our dream house, and we were proud. And it was her. She actually did all the work to get us that house. And because of what I was doing in my life, I jeopardized that house. And I actually ended up causing us to lose that house. Couldn't afford it. That's kind of stuff. I mean, you understand why when I say my ex divorced me. There's reasons. There's reasons. She was justified in her mind to do what she did. And when I say the devastation, it's just I just had no defense for that because we'd met very young. She was 18 when we got married. We never used the word divorce. Divorce, we understood the principle that if the moment you said divorce, you could end up in divorce. You just don't play games like that. There was just none of that in our vocabulary. There was just no word for that. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action. It's a choice. Our life was pretty sound doctrinally. And she had such a passion for God. I mean, she loved God with all her heart. All her heart. And probably one of the things was I wasn't moving along probably the same way. And, the things get out of balance. And then Satan's able to come into any place that's not 100% committed to God. Satan's going to get in and do his thing. But she's having a baby now. Coming back to now, around 9 months ago. She moves in with that person. My house catches on fire, my apartment. I have to leave. I have to get out. She says, oh, you can come live with us. And I said, no, not going to happen. That is retarded. That is mentally retarded. That will never happen. I know how God works, and that is so not the will of God to go live in. Oh, that's just wrong. But circumstances just went. I had to vacate. I had to get out. I had no money at that moment. I'm a heroin addict. Did I mention that? It's really hard to be motivated and have goals and do things and get things accomplished. When you're a heroin addict, you tend to take the path of least resistance. So that was the path of least resistance. So she's getting pregnant. I have a belief that her son, I have a role to play to ensure that child grows up and is all that he can be. So right at the time she's getting ready to have her baby. I'll tell you one more thing about that time. I was shoveling the driveway in winter, and the chap, Blaine, he's renting my house, my old house, the house I sold. And I'm now living there in the basement. That is just, I don't even know. That's only God. I wasn't sure if that was God at that time. I didn't know. I was not, put it this way. I didn't volunteer the information that high. Yeah. I'm with a roommate, sort of ex-roommate, sort of an ex and roommate, living with her and her new fella in the basement. That's like, I don't know if that's redneck. I don't know if that's what drug addicts do. So Blaine says to me, says, Greg, do you believe in, yeah, I believe in it. I believe there's, there's destiny. I believe. He goes, yeah, me too. I wanted to be a parent. And he starts telling me a few things and how he miraculously came to get this house. And the name of the street's Parent Road. And he went to stay on Parent Road. And now he's a parent. And for him, that was just a heart's desire to be a father. And so he is just so excited to be a father. And I'm there. And he's just so thankful to help him because, when he wasn't a heroin addict, thankfully, but life can get not orangutan, but crazy. And he honestly was appreciative that I was there. And I thanked him for that. And he said, I don't know. I just have a feeling this is right. You can't explain it. It's just right. And I said, okay, well, I have the exact same thing. I'm leery to admit it to anybody. I don't even want to talk about it. But I will admit, in my heart of hearts, this is right. So I decide I need to stop doing heroin. I need to. It's life or death now. I cannot stop. I'd steal from anybody that I can get money for. I'd lie to you. I'd do pretty much anything, I mean, not anything. You don't. It's not that you become evil. It's just you can justify a lot of things. So stealing, lying, it's just not as important. And yeah, different. Okay, it's as long as it's not from us and it's from them or a big store or that, then it's okay to steal. Like I wouldn't steal from you. That's wrong. But I can steal from them because they don't. I don't owe them nothing. They're not my tribe, so I can steal outside of my tribe. I mean, you justify things. You become that kind of a person. And I was like, God, I need something, but I can't do it. I can't quit. I am so bound up. The pain, heroin. Well, I don't know. Well, I was quite. I drank a lot. I loved drinking. I just loved it. I would drink 24 every day of vodka every single day. If I finish it, I'm pretty much blitzed. I mean, I am, but yeah, every day, 24 of vodka, every day, and no problem. And I just stopped and just it's counterproductive to drugs. Drugs do a different kind of thing. And it's not drugs didn't affect me. They just kept me up for 6 days in a row, not yawning. So, or I could drink 24 and not get drunk. So there's no point drinking. So I just stopped drinking. I had no problem stopping that. But heroin, man, there's a pain that comes with that. That hurts so bad. It drives you. It's like those people with migraines. You know how they just groan. They can't take loud noises. They got to keep their eyes, the brightness. They, talk really softly because it hurts so bad. Heroin's 30 times worse than that, 100 times worse than that. It starts in the smallest part of your body, and it just becomes, that's all you see is that pain until you have heroin. So I said, God, I can't quit. I can't quit. I've tried smoke. I'll tell you one little story. I chained myself up one day. My kids and the wife were leaving for 4 days. I had the house to myself for 4 days, and I had 2 or 3 days off work at the same time. And I was renovating the basement, and the beams were exposed. And I went and set up. I went and got a chain. I went down to the hardware store, got a chain, got a lock, threw it over the beam, a big 4 laminated, 12 by 12, just laminated until it was a beam up there. And I threw the chain over there, and I locked it with a padlock. And I came down. I put an Easy Boy. I bought water, 1 pack of smokes, put it in the bathroom there, the big downstairs bathroom that I was building. I figured I can go to the washroom, right? I can walk anywhere in this bathroom. And then I snapped the lock, and the keys were outside. And then I smoked my cigarettes. Then I just chain smoked, because what the heck, I'm done now anyway, so I'll just finish this. And I don't know how long it was after my last smoke before I could make it to the store down the street. I don't know if it was 6 hours or 10 minutes. But having a chain locked around your neck and around a beam didn't stop me from smoking. It didn't slow me down. So I know about being tied up and bound up and addicted, and heroin is like nothing else. So anyways, it's taking too long. I went to the hospital to detox. In my city, you just phone, if you can get you in, they get you in. So me and the girl went together, and I lost track of her. I stayed overnight. I told God I couldn't quit. I couldn't promise to quit. I couldn't do anything, but I can promise to stay there. Man, I told God I would stay for 7 days. I would stay for 7 days, and I'd do whatever they told me to do. Because I found, in my experience, I'd been there already about 6 months before I got locked up. A suicide thing. And that was ugly. And I wasn't suicidal, but I needed to be locked up in the 3rd floor. Because I would even make a comment like that. I was demented. It was just a little comment. Just, feeling sorry. Just, make a little statement. I taught everyone, all my girls, if someone says, if they mention it, you got to take it seriously. You have to in this day and age. And so people had to take it seriously, and I didn't. So I deserved to spend time in the hospital. So I went there. I said, I can do that for 7 days. I promise you, God, I can stay 7 days. Anything else, you have to. It's you. I should tell you, the only other part I'll add to this is me and God were fighting. I had broken off anything to do with God. My dad, I love that man. He died of cancer. He wasted. I was just. Bob says, "Mark the perfect man." I just think of my father. I'll be able to share if this does anything. I'll be able to share some stories about what a man of God, a man of love. He is the one that made me aware of Enoch. Didn't die. He had so much. God enjoyed his company so much that they went to heaven. So I said, God, I can stay 7 days. The next day, I decided to stay in bed. I got up, go to the washroom in the early afternoon. Collapsed in the washroom. Some kind of seizure. I could crawl to the door. I crawled up the door, got up, and someone held the door for me so I can get up. Then I said, I'm fine, went to my room. Of course, someone went to the nurse. The nurse came. Long story short, I was low in blood pressure, like when they took my stats, vitals, we were getting low, and they decided I need to go into the hospital. So I went into their merge. I got admitted. It's another building altogether on the grounds, and I ended up throwing up all blood. I had a leaker inside my stomach. I was bleeding. A specialist came in, went down into my stomach, came back at 1:30 in the morning. He sits down beside me and he goes, right now, we need to talk about if you want to do not resuscitate order or not. Because I'm going to be gone, he said, for the day and night. I said, no, my 3 daughters don't know. I have no clue. They don't even know I'm here. They found out I did drugs because when I got locked up for 3 days, that's sort of the cat got out of the bag. But then I just tried to be honest, but, But anyways, they knew. So I've been walking around in a state of honesty that people knew I was a drug addict. I was not hiding it, that I used heroin. But totally in bondage, totally unable to free myself. And I'm just going to get a charger. 1 second.